Hello, welcome to Felaban. We are in Buenos Aires. It's the 50th annual gathering of the Federation of Latin American Banks. And I'm here with Bharat Sarpeshkar from Citi, Global Head of Correspondent Banking. Thank you for being with me.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Yeah.
So what do you think are going to be the key topics that underpin this year's discussions at Felaban?
Top of my mind and things that keeps me awake at night, and I think a lot of our partners, is the issue of cybersecurity. And I'm not sure that there is a great deal of awareness here as to what has happened, because the events that have touched banks in Asia and in other parts of the world haven't seen that kind of broad-based impact here. But it's cybersecurity is the old-fashioned bank robbery, where you get success in one part of the world, you will see the bad actors try and replicate that success in other markets, and trying to get the awareness of banks about how important it is to pay attention to basic housekeeping in terms of the way they manage the security of their IT infrastructure, the SWIFT access, etc., etc. And there's a lot of money at stake. The crooks and the criminals are highly, highly sophisticated, and they will go and look for the most vulnerable banks they can find. And so it is a matter of each of our clients that we talk to, that they do have the level of awareness of what's going on, make sure that whatever policies they have in place that are in fact implemented, and then work with us in terms of, and with SWIFT more importantly, to ensure that they meet the minimum standards that they can.
So that's one of the concerns, obviously, internationally, but you're saying that here perhaps is felt with maybe less urgency. So that's one of the things that you're going to discuss while at the event.
I think any bank that I've discussed it, they don't see it as a problem that's going to happen to them. It's somebody else's problem. But it's like, if you're in a house in a neighborhood and they know there are burglaries in the neighborhood, you want to make sure your house is locked and your alarm is turned on. And if banks if they do that, then they'll go to the next bank that, house that is not secured. So it's very simple, logic to this. But it's amazing that it hasn't hit home. But when it does hit home, there's a lot of money at stake.
So you do want to be prepared. Something else that I would imagine is potentially keeping you up at night is de-risking such a buzz and negative words at the moment. Is it also something that you think you will be discussing with your relations there in the region?
The de-risking is an issue and a phenomenon. Actually, the word is demarketing. De-risking implies that there is an actual reduction of risk. But I think what's really been happening over the last several years is banks are finding they're trying to balance off the increased cost of doing due diligence, because at the end of the day, correspondent banking is higher risk because you're at least two steps removed from the customers or the clients who are actually initiating payments. So if banks are not, the cost of doing that has increased. And in some ways you could say rightly so, or other words you could say there is increased focus on this from a regulatory angle. But where these costs are not matched by the level of compensation from the correspondents, it becomes a straightforward economic issue. And there is a fear, I think, amongst the providers that if they don't meet the standards, that there could be uncapped risk in terms of penalties and fines. And to that extent, I think the policy makers, the regulators have been very, very, I think they've become much more aware of that problem. I think there's a lot of work and dialogue that's been going on, and we've been very, very actively in front, engaging and working and responding to questions that come from the multilaterals, which are very concerned about smaller countries being cut off access to the financial systems. And the OCC recently came out with a set of guidelines around what they believe, I think where they felt that the providers were probably oversensitive to the consequences of infractions. I think what they're looking for is major, lack of enforcement of policy or systemic failures of compliance within institutions, as opposed to, okay, you know, you let one bad payment go through a mistake, which is, you know, they're going to be, yes, they're going to tighten up, but it's not going to be subject to the kind of penalties and fines. And I think trying to get some kind of balance in terms of having banks look at it.
So that's again one of the themes that's very likely is going to come up both in your conversations, but also as part of the conference program.
The other piece that I'm concerned, you know, related to that, I think what we're trying to do is get more and more, and this is again part of the dialogue with the regulators, but also part of the community. And SWIFT, we've been working with SWIFT in terms to see how can we reduce that and share some of the cost of that compliance. So that it becomes, you know, there's a lot of information that is standard between banks. Why are we asking the same question 10 different ways? That level of standardization through SWIFT's KYC registry, which we helped set up 2 years ago with them. We are trying to encourage all the banks here to participate. As of now, my understanding is that only 8 to 9% of the banks in Latin America are participating in the registry, which is a very, very low participation rate. And compared to that, we are seeing much better participation in Africa and in the Middle East and some of the other regions. And
so Latin America still has some way to go. So this is the first day at Felaban. As we can hear, there is quite a lot of noise as people come in and continue to register, and the stands have been ready. It's a very good start of the event. We touched on very important issues, and let's see how these are discussed over the next few days.
And so my job here, I think I look at my job and responsibility to, you know, talk to our correspondents, my clients. They're all valuable relationships for us. You know, where banks have already participated, I'm asking them to take the lead in their own countries. And so if the largest banks in the countries are doing this, they also, you know, are responsible, I think, in terms of sharing their insights with the smaller institutions in the country. Because I think as a community, we need to bring this together. Because the last thing we want to see is banks and countries being deprived of access, because I think that's going to be a major, major economic problem for a lot of these countries.
Very good. Well, thank you so much for your comments, Bharat, and I'll let you continue with your very busy afternoon schedule of meetings.
Thank you.
Thank you again.